Okay, so now we've got the distributor in, so you can see that the wire harness is down here at this position, and our rotor is pointing to the same place that it was with the old distributor. However, the indexer is on the opposite side of the original distributor, so that puts cylinder number 1 180 degrees from the 1 marking that's on the distributor cap itself. So when you put your cap back on there, you can see that the rotor is pointing right at cylinder number 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the static timing. So if you look at the pulley here, we have set this top dead center cylinder number 1 previously. And this is 30 degrees here, and that's 35 degrees. So we're at 1 TDC. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to pull this rotor off so you can see the LED. The LED is located back here near the index. Now I'm going to turn this counterclockwise until the LED comes on. Ding, right there. Oops, right there. The LED comes on. So now I'm going to put my rotor back on. And you're going to see that now the rotor is pointing just a little bit to that side of the cap. So cylinder number 1, once this is set up, is right here on this edge of the rotor. And the reason for that is when this thing advances, because there's no actual mechanical parts that keep this rotor pointing exactly to cylinder number 1, when you get to 30 degrees, it's going to be over here when it fires. Over there where it's at low RPM, low advance, up here where it's high RPM, high advance. So now you can see that it's very important to make sure that you rotate this in the correct direction. That is the opposite direction of the motion of the rotor. So the rotor is turning clockwise. We rotate this distributor counterclockwise until the LED comes on. Okay, so once we get everything back together and we're ready to start the engine, we'll fire it up and put a timing light on it, and we'll see that the timing mark is going to be pretty close to TDC number 1, because that handy dandy green LED here has helped us set up that timing for us. Now, if you look at the factory manual, it tells you that once you get the engine started like this, the procedure is to turn the distributor to some specification, maybe 5 degrees. But instead of doing that, we're going to leave this locked down here, and we're going to put in that static timing, or rather idle timing, using the app. So from there on out, it will be what you see is what you get on the app. So when on the app it says 30 degrees, you can put your timing light on there, you'll be right dead on 30 degrees. Normally we would hook a vacuum line here if we had a kind of engine that had an intake manifold. But this engine has a lot of valve overlap, and we only have a couple of ports here to pull vacuum from. But because of the overlap, it wouldn't be a steady pressure, it'd be a pulsing pressure, and the map doesn't like that. So this motor, it doesn't really matter anyway. So we've just capped that off. Okay, so as you can see, the purple stripe black wire goes to the purple wire on the harness from the distributor. That makes your tach connection there. Now this harness wire is designed to go right along the original harness like the car was originally built. So it may look a little long to you, but it's like that for a purpose, so that it's clipped along this other main harness the same way as the factory. And then the connections here, as you can see, are just like the factory. It connects here. This is a plus terminal. The minus terminal has a ground wire already on it. Now, originally they had this wire here that you see that's kind of curly-cued. You can have that on there for authenticity. Doesn't need to be there, but it's fine to put it on there, just strictly for looks. Okay, so here is the original harness that we removed from the car. And you can see that the connections are exactly the same on the new harness from the Perma-Tune. Same with all the other connections. The wire lengths are the same, the connections are the same. Now, when you look at this harness closely, you'll see that everything is shielded. And that shielded wire is what goes bad. You can see it here too. And what happens is the wire will short to the shielding. And that poses a lot of problems, because inside this loom, all that wiring is very brittle. So what happens, it cracks and it starts shorting to ground. That braid is a ground connection, as you can see right there. So what they did is they carried the ground for the ignition system through this harness. Well, if you have an open circuit in the ground at the transmission, then the starter current will find its ground through this braided wire. What that does is it causes the harness to get very hot, and that's what causes the wiring to get all brittle and start shorting. Now, if it's a really bad connection or a missing connection, you could have full battery current going through there, in which case this would actually catch on fire. And you can actually go to Porsche junkyards and see plenty of cars there with the engine compartment burned out, where just that's happened. Now, our systems have a built-in safeguard against that. Okay, now what you can see on the Perma-Tune harness, this ground wire is actually a fusible link. So in a case where you have a catastrophic battery ground connection that would normally have caused an engine fire, what will happen here is this fusible link will burn, breaking the connection. The car will stop running, but it's not going to catch on fire or get all crispy and smoky like this one will do. The relay panel that was removed from the car with still some of the old parts on it that, of course, are going to be replaced with new. And this is where the fuel injection relay, RPM relay, connects to here. And on some of the earlier cars that didn't have the CD box, they had this device, which was put right here. Now this is a later model. This is a 2.2 liter engine, so it doesn't have that part, but it does still have this RPM gauge or RPM switch that plugs in here. Okay, now here's the tachometer from this car, and it has been refurbished and with a new circuit board inside. So this is probably not going to give us any problem with the tach. So on some cars, they have a tach isolator, or sometimes called a tach transducer, that was installed right here on this panel. Now, sometimes when you install the Perma-Tune distributor combination, you might have a problem where the tachometer doesn't work. And in those cases, it's usually this device that's doing it. So we can simply jumper that out of the circuit. Once you pull it out of the socket that is there, you'll see 3 wires. There's going to be a brown wire and 2 black and purple wires. So what you do is you simply jumper the 2 black and purple wires together with a jumper like that, plug it right into the harness, and that should take care of the tach problem.